best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
This is Discover Crypto. My name is DZ, and every day we show you how to make money in crypto. And today we got to talk about China selling their Bitcoin. What kind of impact is this going to have on the price? In addition to the tariff escalations that are hitting the markets right now, the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, they don't know what direction to choose, and neither does Bitcoin. As we look at Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin is just going nuts. On the charts here, you can see Bitcoin just a nice blast off this morning. Pumping and pumping and pumping. If we go ahead and measure this move, very short amount of time here. I'm gonna get out of the way there. Yeah, over about $1,000 in 40 minutes. Once we zoom out a little bit here, you can see Bitcoin trying to find a little bit of a bounce here, a little bit of support. But we have Coinbase calling for a bear market. Is crypto in a bear market? Are the altcoins in a bear market? But we also have $1 million Bitcoin price predictions. So we're going to discuss all that. And we got TJ here. TJ, Josh is away because we got some special afternoon streams coming on, right?
We do. Yeah, it's a big day, huge day overall in the economy. We've got tariffs happening, another raise on the tariff day. We've got Jerome Powell speaking later today. There's earning reports coming out. So yeah, Josh is at home trying to get in all his trades for the trading competition before going live today. And we did announce that. We announced it yesterday, but want to go ahead and re-announce it again today. And if you guys are following us on X, you saw it. We do have a lot of rewards thanks to our partner LBank here. They're doing a lot of giveaways for trades right now. Let me go ahead and share this, and so you guys can see it. Up to $13,000 that you can unlock in USDT for the rewards. That's a pretty epic thing. $6,000 giveaway for the top 3 traders. Yep. So if you top ranking gets 3,000, second place gets 2,000, third place gets 1,000. There's all kinds of other ways that you unlock stuff. I mean, we were doing the math earlier. To get this $50, it's basically you take $300 on a 30x trade, and you're gonna most likely get $50 right there. So huge shout out to LBank. They're a great partner of ours, bringing those rewards to the Disco fam. So yeah, Josh is in trying to stay the top trader for this competition.
I'm actually number 1 right now. I'm not kidding. I believe I'm the first one to sign up. So if you go here, I actually posted it from my account as well. We'll show this real quick. So weird when you change your screen size. You got to change how you click around on X. But giving away $6,000, like we said earlier, if you click on the link, it's a super easy process. You just hit the button. Signed in, and yeah, I'm number 1. I was going to go to it here, but took me away because I'm also in a trade right now. We're going to be looking at that as well. But let's look at the market watch right now because Bitcoin is a little all over the place. We're going to hit refresh here. Bitcoin right now down about 1.2%, ETH down about 2.6%, as well as XRP. You can see Tron 2.6% to the upside here. So we're seeing a little bit of back and forth. Cardano, we do have people in the chat. They're stacking their Cardano on Arculus. Doobie-doo with the new font. When did we change the font, TJ?
I think that's what Aaron and I were talking about right before the stream. So
all right, it looks cool.
Yeah, we're just playing with some new settings here. So
all right. And yeah, so looking at the rest of the altcoins here, we have Toncoin down a ton here relative to the rest of the market, down about 3.4%. We don't see too much. Only thing I'm seeing green here is Monero and some stable coins. Now, if we look at the biggest gainers in all of the top 100 coins here, Curve DAO, the DeFi pump is here, and EOS. And how about that gold? Gold is just going nuts right now. We might look at gold's price. Let us know if you're a gold bug. Type in bug in the chat if you're a gold bug. TJ, did you ever hear the conspiracy about the term conspiracy theorist?
I don't know if it's a conspiracy or not, but the where it comes from, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, where it came from. Where did it come from?
The intelligence community. I want to say, like CIA, NSA, but I'm pretty sure CIA created that term to try to kind of stigmatize anybody that was spreading theories that were counter to their theories, I guess you
And
could
they say
say.
the same thing about gold bug because gold takes us away from the traditional finance system, and gold
Huh,
is a little bit more of a hard money like Bitcoin. They say the CIA maybe did the same thing with gold as well. So gold bug,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we need another name for gold bugs and Bitcoin bug. I like Bitcoin bug. You know, I'm more like a Cardano roach though when it comes to the insects. EOS is up, like we were saying. Tron is up. Monero, Trump with a little bit of a pump here, but still below $8. Far cry from when it was trading around $80 or nearly. When we look at the biggest losers here, IP, the story of the losers is Story, followed by Tia, Flare, and Bonk. The Bonk community is just not looking strong lately. There's a lot of other meme coins kind of taking its thunder there. And Athena is down 6.7%. Now, we're seeing a lot of more concentrated winners at DeFi, TJ. Have you changed your thoughts on Athena? Would you rather, maybe just hold a chain link or an Aave or maybe even a curve? Or is Athena still on your radar?
Well, it's funny you mention all of those things. I do actually hold Chainlink and Aave and Curve. Those are some of my heavier holdings right now, but Athena is still on my radar. So it's not, to me, that's what I think, one that's an up and comer on this space. Their stable coin absolutely exploded very quickly. So that's going to generate a lot of revenue. I do think revenue based projects are going to do well in this next set of the cycle. So I talk about it a lot. I'm pretty heavy DeFi believer this cycle. I think a lot of the rules or laws and regulations that are changing will favor DeFi and allow it to really do, traditional finance is going to become DeFi, and it's just going to be finance. Like that is just the future of the finance industry, which is one of the biggest industries in the world. So plenty of space for plenty of players. Athena seems to be the regulatory wrapper, so to speak. They came up really fast. They seem to have the inside track.
I thought, not to cut you, I thought that was Warren G.
Nice.
I had to get it.
No, he's out. He is regulating, that is for sure. But no, I think Athena is going to continue to perform well, and the price levels that it's at now, it can be accumulated. So, but I will say this: I hold more of all those other coins. I have a lot more Curve, I have a lot more Aave, and I have a lot more Chainlink than I do Athena. So your analysis is not wrong. And if people are choosing between those, I would go to any of those first and then come to Athena. But yeah, I'm pretty heavy Curve holder right now. Pretty heavy in all of those actually.
All right.
So.
Well, going from Athena to Frank Arena. Frank Arena, you said you stuck with the coin. I'm stuck with sand, unfortunately. I hate sand. Of course, it's rough. It gets everywhere. It makes me think of Tatooine. But when you're stuck with a bag, it's an older bag. What do you do with say you have an old metaverse token? Would you consider selling at a 90% drawdown, or are you just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping the market turns around?
For me personally,
yeah. What would you do if you found a bag of sand? Not like for floods or a levee breaking, but if you had a bag of the altcoin sand.
For me, I actually do it a little bit differently depending on how much capital it is. So if I had, $5,000 in something and it goes down 90% and there's, hardly anything left, under $1,000 left, I probably leave it and hope it comes back. If I'm looking at a bag and, like I say, I've got 3 to 5 grand sitting somewhere and it's like, I don't think this thing's ever coming back, I will take that and reallocate it into something that I think is going to perform well over the next part of the cycle. So that's generally how if it's under $1,000, it's really, I don't feel like hey, I'm going to move it into this other thing that's going to 10x. Okay, now I'm back to break even. I'll just forget about it and hope for the best, let it ride. If it's 3 grand and I think, hey, if I get over here and I can get a 10x, I can turn this 3 into 30. I'm more likely to move it. But it kind of also kind of depends on my mood, what else I'm trying to get done. So that may not be the best investing strategy. I'm sure people have more technical answers, but that's how I've done it over the years. And generally it has, for the most part, worked out. I think there's only one that I moved that came back years later, and I was like, if I had left it in there for 4 years, I'd be okay. It's kind of like me with Ethereum right now.
I actually have a warning. I was going to say this later on in the stream here, but I think now is a good segue here. This is from Not Gonna Make It here, 0x. I've noticed that scammers have started buying old abandoned DeFi domains to replace the front end with crypto drainers. So if you're going to go to some old dead DeFi project to withdraw some money you put there and forgot about, just be careful. So if you got $20 worth of some DeFi token, it might not be worth, or, because a lot of times you have to hook it up to the original wallet that you're linking it with. And so you maybe have some crypto from 2021, 2022 sitting on there. So just be careful with old, dead DeFi projects. You see some DeFi coin, you're down 98%, might not be worth clicking that link and linking your wallet for that $20 and some illiquid altcoin.
No, that's good advice. I've seen that happen with bridges and stuff too. People use bridges, and then something happens with the team, it goes under. This protocol's done, and then somebody else will pick that up and kind of reskin everything to make it look the same. And then you go to bridge your funds and you lose your funds. I've known a couple of people that's happened.
Got to be careful out there. But now let's talk about bridges, and from bridges to walls. We got to talk about China selling Bitcoin. I do see you, Steady Bug, speaking of bugs, saying, Discover Crypto doesn't think there's a bear market. Well, let's give you some bearish news here. So here's your bearish dose of medicine. China selling seized crypto to top up coffers as the economy slows, according to reports here. This is coming from Reuters, not just some random anonymous account here. Local governments in China are seeking ways to offload seized crypto while facing challenges due to the country's ban on crypto trading and exchanges. Chinese local governments are using private companies to sell seized crypto in offshore markets in exchange for cash to replenish public coffers. Now, China has a lot of Bitcoin, 194,000 Bitcoin, worth around 16 billion, and is the second largest nation Bitcoin holder after the US. Now, TJ, before we move forward, these are just reported numbers. We do think, there's probably hidden amounts of Bitcoin within China, within Russia, within Iran, within a lot of countries within the Middle East, and I would say even America, Mexico, South America. Would you agree with that? Do you think China has more crypto than the 194,000 Bitcoin being reported?
Yeah, that's a great question. That kind of applies to almost everything in every report coming out of China. Can you believe it? Is it trustworthy?
Data out of China is notoriously, risky to believe.
Yeah, like I saw a headline today that said, "Oh, China GDP up 5.4% in Q1 2025." Now, obviously, that's self-reported, and they're incentivized to make everybody believe that they're extremely strong economy right now. And that was the first thing that popped in my head, is like, can we believe this number? I would, and history says no. History says you can't believe a lot of what's coming out of their reports. History says they will flub the numbers for whatever they need to try to make it sound good. So I do think they sold this number. But they probably do hold or have ties to, is probably a better way to say it, a pretty fair amount of Bitcoin. We do know a lot of Bitcoin mining was happening in China at one point in time, and then they pushed, when they banned mining, they didn't really stop a lot of the Chinese companies from mining. They just started doing it in other locations, like Kazakhstan is where a lot of them ended up going to. Do they own, how much do they hold through those type of entities, I think is a big question that a lot of people don't have an answer to. So I would say they have more than they're claiming, but again, hard to tell, and I don't think we'll ever really know. And we'll probably see that with a lot of nations. Like, it's going to start to be very much like gold reserves, where we're going to know people have a lot, but people are going to kind of be opaque with how much they hold and where they hold it. And I think that's probably to be expected and not necessarily a bad thing. You don't necessarily, it's kind of the same if you're a Bitcoin whale. Most Bitcoin whales I know, they don't necessarily disclose how much Bitcoin they have.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same for governments. It's going to be the same for all of these actors. So,
good advice from Richard Hart. Never tell people how much crypto you have. Speaking of telling people how much crypto you have, we have the list of countries, and I have to laugh at the last addition to this chart here. So you can see USA with 207,000, China with the reported 194,000, UK coming in third. They got the bronze medal with 61,000 Bitcoin. Ukraine, Bhutan. But I love the last entry here. Germany just sticking the finger in the eye, reminding everybody Germany once had, was it 50,000 Bitcoin, sold it recently, before the pump, before Bitcoin ended up pumping past 100K. Some say even, maybe slowed down the ascent there. But Germany got to be kicking themselves, especially year after year. It's just going to seem like a worse and worse decision. So shout out to the Germans. Germans in the chat. That's the worst thing done over the last century here. Now, China Crypto Reserve is floated as a solution here. They're saying China might want to keep forfeited Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, Same thing that Donald Trump is proposing doing. But several industry observers said the China's tariff response could result in a devaluation of the local currency, which increases the odds we're going to see a flight to crypto. So just some things to think about when it comes to this. But we also have the bear market news here for the bears in the chat. Hit the like button if you think Bitcoin 109 was the top. We'll never see that number again for years. I would disagree respectfully, though. But crypto in a bear market, but likely to rebound in Q3, according to Coinbase. So before we get into the article, TJ, what do you feel about the rebound in Q3? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in line with my theory of like summer. I think it might be, I might be thinking it happens a little earlier than Q3, but Q3, Q4, I guess what is Q4? October,
Q4
November?
starts October. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Q3, will be extremely bullish. A lot of people calling for a 200 to 220 Bitcoin, maybe 250 Bitcoin by November. So I think Q3
that would be
will
July. Be good. Do you remember what happened last holiday weekend around July?
Talking about like 4th of July weekend?
Yeah. That now
not?
It was actually overshadowed by the August 4th crash, but we had that 4th of July weekend crash that happened in 2024. Altcoins were devastated. This was a very bearish holiday weekend here. So went into the Monday, and then 4th of July was on a Thursday. And by the end of Saturday, Bitcoin had peeled off $10,000 just in a matter of days there. So 4th of July, beginning of July is Q3, started beginning of Q3. 4th of July is historically low volume area, and we can see a lot of fireworks around these holiday weekends.
Let me ask you this. We got Steady Bug here. He's our resident bear, right? The bear in the chat. He tells us every day how
he's a hairy guy, likes to go to clubs.
Now, he tells us every day how the price is going down. He says we're not going to break 100. I'm assuming he's talking about 100K until 26, 27, holding firm. I would strongly disagree with that, and I'll take a bet on that we will break 100K before 2026. Just curious if he's willing to take a bet on that. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, you disagree, I would assume?
I got some data. I've said it before, and I've said it to him directly. I'm seeing the bear market drawdown that we're seeing here. This little mini bear market, it just has a lot of the echoes of the 2021 drawdown that we saw in a roughly same period of time. We saw Bitcoin start declining in April. It's declined heavily in May, found a bottom in June, July, where Bitcoin, fell from 60K all the way down to 29, 28.5. And then Bitcoin went on to do a new all-time high. Some of the best traders I knew said this is 100% a bear market. Bitcoin will not find a new all-time high this year. Money printers basically said, well, hold my beer. We are going to get a new all-time high. And we're starting to see money printers turn on right now. We're seeing the liquidity cycles. We're about a few months away, 7 weeks away from the fireworks. If we follow that 108-day, 111-day drawdown, or I'm sorry, correlation there. So I can't help but think, I'm still super bullish.
All right, well, let me ask. So I don't know what he said. What's your number, Steady Bug? Tell me what, if you're willing to bet, put a number on it, and we can custody the funds somewhere. I know you said I did bet that we're gonna do it in June. You said we're not gonna do it in June for rate cuts, but we never actually like custodied anything. So I'd be willing to put some money up and say we will break 100K before 2026. And you tell me the number, and I'll take that.
Yeah, we got the fit trucker here. He's doing curls while he's driving. He's got one jacked arm. It's just like so small. Then the other one's it's a noodle arm. But he said, check the global M2 money supply with 110-day. We did that yesterday, and we put out in one of our videos recently here. If we go to videos, just look in, the dollar is dying. Why Bitcoin holders will get rich. Oh no, it's the Fed pivots. Oh, that's Josh's video. So the China Trump massive pump 5 days ago. We go over that. We also covered it in yesterday's live stream. So the M2 money supply is set to is pumping now. Bitcoin typically follows a few months later. If that repeats, we are going to see some new all-time highs very, very soon, folks. But let's talk about this bear market here. Now, according to Coinbase, we're going to see a bear market, and this is a monthly market review from Coinbase, and it shows while the crypto market has contracted, it does appear to be gearing up for a better quarter here. Looking at some of the stats, altcoin market cap from December 2024 shrank 41%, 1.6 trillion to 950 billion. Venture capital funding to crypto projects decreased 50 to 60% from 21-22. Several converging signals may be pointing to the start of a new crypto winter, as some extreme negative sentiment has set in due to the onset of global tariffs and the potential for further escalations. We're going to mention the global tariffs in a little bit, talking about the Trump retaliation here. But there's macroeconomic woes causing this crypto turmoil. The report notes that lower VC interest significantly limits the onboarding of new capital into the ecosystem. This is felt primarily in the altcoin sector. And these facts have resulted in a difficult cyclical outlook for the digital asset space. So these facts are just saying crypto's looking bad in the immediate term here, and it warrants continued caution in the next 4 to 6 weeks. But the author said the market's likely to change directions explosively. When sentiment finally resets, it's likely to happen rather quickly, and we remain constructive for the second half of 2025. Now, we're going to go to this thing called the Z-score here, but when we do get a bounce, is it going to be a slow bounce, or is it going to be quickly and explosively, TJ?
I think it's going to be quick and explosive. That's how generally what we see in Bitcoin's price action. When it moves violently in both directions, and it lulls people. It lulls people. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm pulling up the chart while you're talking here.
Yeah. No, it lulls people to sleep, and you get like when you're bored, and it's seasons like right now where people are, it's chopping around, it's doing nothing for 3 months, 6 months. It lulls people to sleep. They're getting impatient, and then all of a sudden, boom, a big move up, and then it'll chop sideways for a little while, and then boom, a big move up. It'll do the same thing going down, so it's not like it's up only, but yeah, generally, and it can be in times of low volume. That's when it's easier to move the price. So that's part of why I think right about the time the consensus comes around to thinking, hey, it's going to be a slow summer, or these tariff wars are going to go on longer than we think, or all these different things, we're going to get a major macro event, whether it's tariffs ending, whether it's treasury buybacks, whether it's Fed rate cuts, whether it's some combination of all of those things. And my prediction is we're going to see it this summer. We're going to see some of the macro shifts happen, and then it'll be all of a sudden, boom, like, if you remember, I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at the chart. When we went from we went to 70 to 100K in like a 3 days, I think, something crazy like that. Like, we can do that again in no time. So yeah, we'll get back above 100K, then we'll move. I mean, we were getting $10,000 daily candles, $10,000 hourly candles. Like, we're going to be getting that again very soon. And you'll see, we'll make, once we get above 100K, I think the move up to over 110 will be very violent. Then we're back in price discovery. We can move from 110 to it doesn't really matter. It's price discovery. 125, 130, 150. That can happen very, very quickly.
Yeah, and also 19 days, we pumped 50%. Bitcoin added $32,000 to its price there.
And that's
the recent pump from 66 to 99, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying, and that's consistent with Bitcoin. You could go back as far as you want and track Bitcoin's price movements, and you'll see the big, and it's consistent with the stock market. It's just the way markets work. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I've seen them in the past. There's one of those, like the 20 best days in stock history is when so much of the returns happen, whereas like a lot of people just get bored out. And if you're not in on those days, if you're trying to play the market too much, putting your capital in, taking it out, and you miss that big move, and then you try to get in, that's what happens with so many people. It's the impatience, it's the needing their money now, not lasting in the market. That's where so many people get shaken out. Your ability to hold an asset for a long period of time generally is your ability to make money with that asset.
Everybody hit the like button if you thought of J.G. Wentworth when TJ said that sentence. It's my money.
Cash now. Yeah.
Called J.G. Wentworth. All right, everybody. Now, looking at the Z-score here, this is not a Brad Pitt movie. This is another metric is called the Z-score. This compares market value and realized value to identify overbought and oversold conditions. Now, looking at the Z-score, which is this blue line here, and you can see this faint gray line is Bitcoin's price. I keep saying that what I feel like we're experiencing right now is similar to the middle of 2021, where Bitcoin, found a little bit of a bottom. This is the crash from April, fell all the way to June, July, and then Bitcoin found a new all-time high heading into November 2021. The Z-score hit 0 and then found a bounce. And even though the Z-score didn't get higher, the price got a lot higher. And if you look at the Z-score right now, we just hit 0 yet again. So I am feeling, kind of bullish when I'm looking at the Z-score metric there. Also, it's looking at the bull and bear cycles identified by this. You can see, when you do the 200-day moving average, Also seen a lot of similarities to what we saw in the middle of 2021. So feeling pretty bullish. But are we in a bear market? Looking at the 200-day moving average, looks like we've been in a bear market since late March, and that's the red zone right here. We don't have the data for 2021, but sure enough, this would be a red zone. So I don't know why they stopped the 200-day moving average right there. It would go obviously to 2011. So what do you feel? Are we in a bear market, TJ?
No, I don't feel like we're in a bear market. We're up in prices, like the structure. We're still in a bull market structure. If you're measuring, I mean, we're at 84.7 right here. Like doesn't feel bearish to me when we were sitting in the 40s, about a year ago, 60s, something like that, not that long ago. So maybe you could say we're in a bearish trend, but we're definitely not in a bear market.
Yeah, I mean, we got people all over the place. We got people, we are definitely in a bear market. Can't believe Discover Crypto says we're not in a bear market. Then we got people, you say the word bear market, and they just start laughing. They're laughing.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're so bullish. They're seeing the macro events. They're seeing the money printers being turned on. They're seeing the trade wars, devaluing currencies left and right. And where is that capital flight going to head to? Well, you could buy gold. It's at a new all-time high. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Bitcoin because it's at a drastic discount from $109,000. But speaking of trade, or go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, those people that are saying that are just very zoomed in on the charts. If you zoom in enough and you can say we're in a bear trend. Yeah, you zoom into an hourly candle, a 15-minute candle.
Bearish divergence on the 1 minute.
Exactly. But if you keep zooming out, you go to a daily, you go to a weekly, you go to a monthly, like not even close, like it's clearly a bullish structure if you're looking at longer time frames. So that's a trader's debate, and you guys that do TA all the time can kind of debate those structures all you want. But to DZ's point, the macro environment is strong for Bitcoin. The price action in the past year has been strong, for 12 months, has been really strong for Bitcoin. And I expect it to continue on that path. And I think we'll close up dramatically at the end of this year. And then they can tell me it's a bear market when we're at 150,
Yeah.
and they will. So that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, 250,000 Bitcoin will be bearish at one point. Crypto. Now let's talk about the trade war. Just kind of want to give some of the details over the last, let's say, 12 hours or so. So Donald Trump, China, they're starting to escalate. White House said China now faces 245% tariff on imports and put new restrictions on chip exports to the country. Bitcoin fell on the news while the broader market also fell about 3.75%. NASDAQ was down. S&P futures were down. I haven't checked it lately here, but if we check NASDAQ this morning, NASDAQ is down, and 2% is pretty significant for the stock market here. So, not too surprised we're seeing a lot of red in the crypto market. But look at Bitcoin outperforming now.
Oh, yeah, Nvidia took a hit. I know it was down in the pre-market. Let's look.
Ooh, 7% right now.
Yeah.
It almost looks like, a little bearish trend there on the 1 year. You go to the 5 year, probably looks.
Yeah. It's a bear market. That's a bear market, DZ. That's what it's like with Bitcoin. Like people zoom in enough and like, oh man, really there you go. Super bearish on Nvidia. Not a bear market. So.
Yeah, maybe a healthy pullback right there. Now, speaking of the NASDAQ S&P 500, it did surge on some news. I just want to tell you the markets have been whipsawing a lot lately just off rumors. This is a rumor as well. S&P 500 jumped 100 points on a report from China just being open to talks with Trump. What was the source? China wants to see a number of steps from Trump's administration for his agree to all trade talks by reining in disparaging marks, according to a person familiar with Chinese government's thinking.
That is pretty funny.
I mean, I could say some jokes here. I'm not going to say any jokes, but I mean, what does that mean? What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah, that's a great question. Like, if they should have just stopped it with like familiar, period. But it's just like, what does that even?
Yeah,
what
a
does
person
that even
familiar
mean?
with the Chinese government be like, I know it exists.
That's
familiar with it.
Yeah, that's somebody's grandma who lived in China, 30 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I went to Chinatown.
That could be anybody.
NFT NYC 3 years ago, and I bought some plate of food that gave me diarrhea. Anyways, looking at Bitcoin, we got some price action stuff here. Bitcoin at risk, dropping to 75K. So we still got to give the bears a little bit before we're about to flip bullish right after this. So could Bitcoin see 75K? if the 83K support breaks. Well, it looks like the recovery has stalled, with 86 marking a resistance zone. Key momentum indicators suggest a potential bearish shift as the 50 and 100-hour SMAs are poised for a bearish crossover. A move below 83 could trigger a sell-off, while a close above 86 is needed to recover, continue the rally. I don't want to get too deep into the article. I just want to look at these 50 and 100-hour 1 hour SMAs. And so we go here. I pulled it up. I got the 50. All right, so the 50 looks like it is going to be dropping below the 100. Is a short-term moving average dropping below a long-term moving average. This is considered bearish. TJ, I haven't done this yet. I wanted to back test what happened the last time we had a bearish crossover. So you can see the bullish crossover right here. You actually got wrecked. You got wrecked. Now, the big move to the upside created a bullish crossover, but then it was immediately met with giant red candles. So if you jumped in on this bullish crossover, you bought right here, and then you immediately were like, oh my God, I'm freaking down. And then if you just calm down, let's see, if we measure this move in hours, really you didn't have to wait too long. Okay, you had to wait literally 24 hours. So just calm down for 24 hours, then you're in the green. Let's look at the last bearish crossover. I mean, it was a little bit late. It seems like this is a pretty much a lagging indicator. It did end up falling a little bit more. So what's your prediction here? Are we going to fall a little bit more, or is this a lagging indicator because we're about to start pumping?
I mean, they're definitely lagging indicators. That's like by definition.
Yeah, by definition.
Yeah,
Touché.
that's how they work. So it's definitely a lagging indicator.
Well, looking at the 100 hours in the past. So I mean, that is how it works. It is a lagging. True.
Yeah. But again, TA I think is interesting from a confluence perspective. I look a lot more at the macro, and if the charts align with it, it's great to see somebody getting to the same conclusion from another direction. So, could we get some volatility? Could Powell come out and say, oh, the tariffs are causing major problems, we're expecting there to be big inflation as a result, and so for that reason we think we're less likely to cut rates, and then boom, prices come back and pull back? Absolutely, that could happen today, and then that lagging indicator becomes correct. But was it because the chart said that, or was it because it's what Powell said? You decide, Western man. But I think I still think it's a lot of noise right now, and either way, I don't think we're going below 75K. I really firmly believe that right there that we're looking at on the left side of that chart was that's 75, right? That's the double bottom right there. Yeah. I think that's an exceptionally strong support, and you could zoom out even more, and there's a lot of reasons that 74 and change numbers have a ton of volume traded at those levels. I don't think we're going below that. So if we do get a chance to get back into the 70s and we lose something like 83, if we do lose 83, I don't think we'd necessarily go straight back to 75 either. There's levels between 83 and there's decent support at 79 to 80. There's even starting to get some in that 82 range now. So I don't think we're going down. Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's 79's previous market all-time high. But if you get a chance, take the chance. Like, don't, I see so many people when we were at those lower levels in the 75, 76, 78 saying, I'm waiting for 50 or 40, like even lower and lower numbers. But if I do get a chance again to buy anything else below 80K, I'm going all in with everything I have. And every time that happens, I'm coming up with more money to go all in again. So whether that's selling something, whether that's getting a second job, or whatever you're trying to do, like those are the numbers that are opportunity zones. So if it goes down there, I'm excited about it. But I really honestly don't believe that's going to happen. I think we've seen the worst of the pain. I think a lot of this tariff stuff is noise. A lot of what the Fed is doing is noise. The Fed is going to cut rates. I mean, I looked at something yesterday. Bank of America priced in, I think, 4 rate cuts this year on their report. Not saying that's going to happen, but that's what they're trying to price in. So they're going to cut rates. The Treasury is already like hinting at the fact that they're going to be doing buybacks, through with Lutnick. I think these tariff things are working out well. I think they're negotiating a lot of better new deals. Eventually, I think by the end of the summer, most of those will be gone. We might still be yapping back and forth with China, but at the end of the day, that's again a lot of noise, and they're not going to let all the markets collapse. China's not going to let their market collapse. We're not going to let ours collapse. Both parties have plenty of, they both have a printer warmed up and ready to go. So if you get a chance to buy at those levels, I would that's what I'm going to be doing. So
Yeah. Now we got people in the chat talking about Pal. Pal's running the show here. Well, the next 24 hours is going to be fraught with data here. That's why we're going to have Josh going live later. So make sure you turn on your notifications here. I just want to, I'll let him kind of do the bulk of the talk on what's going on here. But just a couple of the numbers here. We got March retail sales, industrial production figures, and then later in the day, Jerome Powell delivering his speech at the Economic Club in Chicago. This is going to be coming out at 1:30 a.m. or 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so if you're wondering about that. Now, let's check in on Bitcoin dominance. Through the roof, everybody. Just in, Bitcoin dominance now hit a new 4-year high. It is now past the peak, and we're going to look at the wick too. There's no second best. I think we have Ben Cowan here. Bitcoin dominance back at 64%, but he's saying even higher. He thinks 66% is a good short-term target here. So let's look at Bitcoin dominance. Now, once we zoom out to the 3-day here, all right, you can see dominance obviously was higher. There's a lot less tokens in the ecosystem then. And when you see here, you can see a little bit of a trend line, not much of one, but this is what we painted when we wicked to it not too long ago. And then zooming out, look at that. It's almost hit perfectly there. When we made this video, I said, maybe look out for that little scam wick to the upside. I would say this is maybe a little bit more of a wick, more than a wick here. This is a sustained move to the upside, but I'm still predicting we are going to see Bitcoin dominance fall by May 5th. May 5th. We'll see. I'm going to leave this drawn here for all month here, and hopefully this prescient prediction comes true here. Now, Bitcoin dominance, obviously we talk about all the time. When it falls, this is good for your altcoins. And oftentimes when it goes up, it's because Bitcoin's dropping, but the altcoins are dropping even worse here. Do you have any thoughts on Bitcoin dominance in the short term, TJ?
No, I mean, I think it's performing extremely strong. A lot of times, another thing to keep an eye on is the DXY, which has been falling recently because it's kind of, they both work similarly with altcoins. I do think, again, Bitcoin dominance is going to continue to rise as far as it's going to continue to rise until you said May 20th. That's an interesting date.
May
because
5th.
May
5th. That's when I have it, potentially breaking out of this rising wedge.
That's pretty close in line. I think it's going to continue to be at least very strong until we start to see Fed pivot, again, money printing environment. That's when it's almost like Bitcoin isn't considered risk on anymore. And this is depends on who you ask on if it's risk on or a hedge or risk off. But it's starting to perform a lot more like a hedge where altcoins are the risk on assets. So, and I keep saying, I think altcoins really start to come back and see their heyday when we're in a money printing environment, when we're catching up to that M2 money supply, when rates are getting cut, which could happen in May. There's still some chance it happens in May. I'm still if I had to bet, I'm betting on June. But oh man, that's the money. That's the M2 right there. And look, we're about to hit a new all-time high on that. So that's when I think really we see risk on stuff really start to take off. Bitcoin dominant. I do think it's all going to flow into Bitcoin first. That all the new money wants to start there. All the big money that's buying is starting with Bitcoin, and then it will start to flow to altcoins. But I think we have to be in a little bit more of a risk on environment, meaning like tariffs are a little bit more negotiated and people are feeling confident in the market. But I don't know. This is an interesting one when you consider Bitcoin dominance because so much new money's coming in, and big money is very interested in Bitcoin, much less interested in altcoins. So
look at the relative strength and indicator on that. We just keep printing and printing and printing and printing and printing. Hey, we printed too much over 18 months. And we're back to printing. And we're back to printing and printing and printing and printing. All right. Now, this is one of the reasons why I'm still bullish on crypto, still bullish on Bitcoin here. This is why I hodl my Bitcoin U.S. national debt, 1900 to 2020. When are they going to... I didn't even think about the political ramifications of what they're saying right here. But when are they... I honestly, I wasn't even thinking about that. Well, stay inside. Don't hurt grandma.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks again. Another 2 weeks. All right, 2 months. We're trying for 2 years, but they won't let us. All
Maybe
right.
200.
Forever. Let's go ahead and weld that door shut. Anyways, looking at the trillions of dollars here, linear scale, this is not going to be slowing down anytime soon. U.S. national debt, as we get more and more debt, it's just going to weaken the dollar. As the dollar weakens, that is good news for Bitcoin. I don't want the dollar to be weak. I don't want my currency to fail. I like being the reserve currency for the globe. It helps our economy. People have to export. People import our dollars, so we're exporting our dollars, which creates demand, which makes the dollar more valuable. But at the end of the day, the debt ceiling is very, very unsustainable. And because of that, now we got people floating $1 million Bitcoin. That's right. For the bears, it is time to turn full bull. I'm even sprouting horns here. Bitcoin could hit $1 million if the US buys 1 million Bitcoin, although it's from the Bitcoin Policy Institute. I'd rather that be from, a bank or, something like that. But Bitcoin Policy Director Matthew Pines said the tariff earnings are budget neutral. It can be used by the government to buy Bitcoin. Here's his quote: "If the United States announces they are buying 1 million Bitcoin, that's just a global seismic shock. I think first Bitcoin price goes through the roof. I think we probably go very quickly to something like $1 million per Bitcoin." This is from Zach Shapiro, the head of policy for a Bitcoin think tank. If the United States announces they're buying 1 million Bitcoin, now I just want to say, throw local water. I don't know if we'll buy 1 million. We do have seized Bitcoin, but I would still say buying 800,000 Bitcoin, still very, very bullish. I don't think it's going to be too much of a difference at the end of the day. Now, Matthew Pine said other nations are going to be watching how the U.S. positions itself with Bitcoin before they formulate their own strategies. I would say the smart countries, they've already formulated their own strategy. Would you agree with that, TJ?
Yeah.
Do you think China and Russia is like, well, I don't know what we're going to do until Trump does something? I don't think they wait for that.
No, they have strategies. They're just pretending they don't. Like they're acting like, we don't know. Like we'll figure out something at some point. We'll make some plan. But
yeah, they're doing the John Travolta meme from
I don't know. Yeah, and I think even the US is doing that. Like if you go look at, it was 2021 when, and you can argue about how this happened or who, but essentially it was 2021 when the feds went after that. I think it was $3 billion worth of Bitcoin at the time, the largest amount that they held. They took it from Jimmy Zong, who got it from Silk Road way back in the day. It was like 600K worth of Bitcoin when he got it from Silk Road. And they basically entrapped him into inviting him into his home and opening his computer. They tricked him into typing his password in, tricked him into going outside, and then they said, "Oh, and we're doing a search and seizure." By the way,
they jammed a device into his laptop that keeps the cursor moving, so the screen would never lock. Therefore, he'd never had a chance to password protect it.
It's crazy. And so that happened, and that was a long-term operation for them to figure out where it was, find it, who has it. I mean, that was going on for years before they actually pulled the trigger on that. That was back in 2021. And that is where the largest stash of that 198,000 Bitcoin that the US has came from. And so if you think that all of that happened by accident and nobody within the intelligence community, the State Department, NSA, Homeland Security, whatever it is, wasn't involved in that, then I think you're just not really paying attention. So, yeah, people have a plan.
Yeah, and it was interesting how that whole thing kicked off. The Jimmy Zong, he called the cops because someone broke into his house, and if you saw the security footage, I mean, the guy could have been central casting for Patriot Front. It's like a 6'3" military age male, very fit.
I'm pretty sure I've seen
pants.
Yeah, Matt Damon's going to play him in a movie here soon enough, so.
It didn't look like someone who just burglars homes, no. Not at all, not at all. Very, very fit individual.
10 years they were trying to find him. And they say that in the document. They were trying to track that Bitcoin down for 10 years. See, I think it was CNBC or MSNBC or somebody did a documentary on it. And even that was trying to spin it in a way that doesn't sound too bad. But it's like, if you're a person who cares about human rights and privacy, you watch that and you're like, this is criminal. This is almost as bad as what they did to Ross. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah, he had motherboards and a popcorn tin in his attic.
A chip. Yeah, and they never found it. They basically forced him to tell him where it was, and under the threat of being locked up for the rest of your life. I mean, it's crazy. And you could kind of surmise that from the video too, because they basically said, we searched his entire place, we stripped everything out that we could find. And eventually, he disclosed that where it was.
Imagine if he just said, "No, lock me up for the rest of my life. This 600K Bitcoin burnt forever."
Yeah,
it's gone.
3 billion. Yeah, it was
nice.
Yeah, not for him, but
not for him. Follow all local rules and regulations. All right, now Jurian Timmer. Jurian. I hate the Jurian is once a juror. It's easy to forget how many 20% drawdowns we've had in just the past 5 years. Now we're talking about the stock market. We've had a 28% decline in 22, 35% decline in 2020, and a 20% decline in 2018. This is all the last 7 years. And in other words, every 2 years, the market suffers a large drawdown, and it has come back every single time, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. We were talking about this earlier, TJ. If you had to choose quickly or slowly, you're leaning quickly, right? When it comes to Bitcoin.
Say that again. Sorry.
So the recoveries, they either happen quickly, like I would
Mhm.
say probably happens right here, or it happens slowly, like we saw right here. We end up drawing down. It took a long time. It took a couple years before we ended up seeing a new all-time high. You see the drawdown here. It took a couple years before we saw a sustained rally. What do you think for Bitcoin? Sorry, so we think Bitcoin's recovering quickly. Is the stock market going to be in a bearish period, which will depress Bitcoin's price for a while?
No, I don't think so. I really don't. And it comes back to similar things as far as the major stocks. Very similar principles when it comes to the money printing, the global supply, all that sort of stuff. I mean, assets generally perform over time as money gets printed. It's not. You could argue it's not as much the asset going down as the buying or asset going up as it is the buying power of the dollar going down. But as long as they're printing an infinite amount of money, holding assets will be beneficial. So I think, yeah, we're going to see a quick recovery. And again, there's a lot of tools left to pump the markets. They will absolutely use them. There's no way they're going into midterms and anything like that with everything feeling uncertain like it is right now.
They had advice for Jimmy Zong. Just do the John Travolta meme if you get caught.
I don't know.
Well, what's in that popcorn tin? Why are there motherboards instead of caramel corn? All right, here, kind of to that note, Alex Becker, Cardano fan, the real alpha is just holding and staying optimistic. This is the easiest trade in history, and 90% will fumble it. I didn't even notice. You posted underneath. Buy Bitcoin, take your Stufu form, and become wealthy. As British Hodl says, it is that easy. Shut the F up. Just buy Bitcoin, shut the F up, and just wait. That's all you got to do, folks.
The patience is and I was saying the same thing earlier in the stream. Patience is the main thing people lack when it comes to these markets. It really is that easy. And you got to remember, when you're investing in the stock market, for some reason, all the stuff that people have in their mind when it comes to buying a stock just leaves their head when they're buying Bitcoin. Like, most young people, when they start investing in stocks, they're like, yeah, I'm doing this for my retirement. I'm going to hold this 10, 20, if you're buying Facebook stock or Tesla stock or anything in the last couple decades, you were thinking like, I'm going to hold this for 10 to 20 to 30 years. And I'm going to be building my retirement with this. All of a sudden they turn around and buy Bitcoin. And they're like, it's been 3 months. How come I'm not rich yet? It's like, well, hold it for a little while, like an actual investment. If you can be patient, like he's saying, this is the easiest stupid trade you could ever make in your life. You've got all of the wealth managers and governments buying it. Just buy it and chill. Like, not that hard.
There is an exception here. I think it's like the 4th or 5th comment down. So Alex Becker, the easiest trade, you just got to hold. You just got to stay optimistic. We're ETH holders. That one kind of exception to the rule there. All right, so we'll allow that. We'll allow that.
I'm feeling that right now. But I still think the same thing applies. Keep holding and stay optimistic. You will be rewarded. Ethereum isn't Bitcoin for sure. But if you believe in DeFi, like I was saying earlier, if you believe decentralized finance is merging with traditional finance and will just be the finance industry, it is effectively right now built on Ethereum. All stable coins go through Ethereum and all DeFi goes through Ethereum. And you can't.
Donald Trump, 94% of his portfolio is in Ethereum. If you want to learn more about Ethereum, should you sell it? Should you hold it? I answer the question, is ETH dead? Talk about the biggest risk. I talk about the harsh reality for holding this token. And I have some bullish alpha that you need to pay attention to in that video. So, folks, if you're not watching our uploads, you're definitely missing out on half the content we're putting out there. We talked about the DeFi thing. Oh, I wanted to mention one thing before we move forward. You brought up Tesla. Would you consider buying Tesla stock? With the upcoming potential robot revolution, it seems like a fairly simple $0 to $1 trillion industry. I don't think the robot industry, if we're not talking about factories, robot industry is nothing. I think it will be this gigantic mega $1 trillion asset class. I think Tesla is going to be number one in that. What are your thoughts on Tesla stock?
Yeah, I like Tesla stock, especially after that 50% dip that it just went through. I don't know where it's at today. I don't watch the stock market as
Would you
much as
buy
crypto.
some? Would you hold some?
Sure, yeah.
What's stopping you?
I just am a lot more into crypto, to be honest. Like I don't even I don't really trade stocks all that much, but I'm open to it, you know.
All
Why
right.
not?
Well, speaking of stocks, I actually didn't plan this segue, but we're going to roll with it. Janiver stock is soaring today. It's up 1,700 overall. This is it's a firm taking a page from the Michael Saylor playbook, and they're adding Solana to their corporate treasury. This is former Kraken executives, and they took over a real estate focused financial technical company here, a fintech company, aiming to become the first US listed firm with a treasury strategy centered on Solana. They purchased 80,000 Solana tokens, bringing their total holdings to 160,000. So basically double their bag. They're the first publicly traded U.S. firm to focus its treasury strategy on Solana, and the stock has surged 1,700% since its crypto pivot. And the Solana stack is worth roughly $21 million as the stock has risen nearly 20-fold in less than a month. Everybody, this is a huge pumper here. Now the firm raised 42 million via debt for their Solana acquisition plans, and they also want to have a Solana validator so they can continue to earn Solana rewards. The share price is up 1,700. It started trading $4 or $5 when they announced their plan, and is now up to $73 after their
Jeez.
latest Solana acquisition. We covered this when it happened. Why didn't
Yeah.
we just YOLO in on Robinhood?
I don't know. We should
How
have.
about Solana instead, like an idiot?
I do think some of these are interesting plays. That when you were asking about stocks, you know, like MicroStrategy stock is another one that a lot of people obviously know, trade, and like. I think we're going to start to see this is an interesting development of somebody copying this playbook with a different asset. I do think like it's kind of like Ripple with XRP. And trying to use the new allure of being part of a new industry in crypto to pump their stock price and share price on something that's already traded on an exchange with a lot of liquidity. So interesting here. Now I'm not rushing out to buy it now that it's up that much, but who knows? Like I mean, that's what people said about MicroStrategy when it very first started pumping, and it went up to the moon. So you know, I think we're going to start to see more and more traditional securities adopting a crypto strategy. And, you know, I'm seeing a lot of bullishness for Solana too. A lot of people talking about Solana over ETH. I'm still not there yet. Like I said, when it comes to stable coins and DeFi, I still believe in Ethereum, but I do want to increase my Solana holdings as well, which I have a pretty fair amount of both Ethereum and Solana, but Solana, I think Solana is going to have a great summer. I do think that.
All
It
right.
kind of
Well,
captures a lot when it comes to retail and traditional.
I know who didn't have a great spring, and that's the mantra holders. CEO, he is now pledged to burn the team tokens after the 90% crash there. And so these are going to be the team tokens so they can restore faith in the project. And these are going to be from the team and core contributor allocation, which doesn't start vesting until April 2027. Just for the viewers at home might not know what this means. What does it mean when the token won't start vesting until April 2027?
I mean, they wouldn't start getting them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
So these are going to be like released via smart contract, and it'll hit a wallet. You can invest in it, and then you can write in a smart contract. You know, the tokens won't hit your wallet for a year, 3 years, 10 years. And so starting April 27, they're going to start burning these tokens. I don't know if the community is going to take that and just be like, all right, I'm bullish now.
Wait, they're going to start burning them in 2027, or they're going to burn them now because they weren't going to get them until 2027 anyway?
No, it's start. So he's going to burn all of the tokens from this allocation, but that allocation starts vesting in April 2027.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't have any confidence in this project at all, and coming out and saying we're going to burn all the team's tokens doesn't actually increase my confidence at all. It makes me think, okay, so obviously the team doesn't care about their tokens, and why would the team keep working on it if all their tokens get burned? That doesn't make any sense. So everything about this project seems inorganic and designed to pump the price. And I mean, I know CoffeeZilla did a thing, and they were kind of arguing about what was pumping the price and what isn't, and like, okay, you want to get into the semantics about that, fine. But a lot of what's happened with this project is not based around a successful project that has utility. It's based around marketing and trying to get the price to go up. and get people excited and get people to buy it that don't really understand what it is. So bottom line, it seems like they don't have a lot of the RWA assets that they should have had, and it's performed like a meme coin. Does that mean it can't recover? No, it can definitely have some price action. Traders are going to trade it. If there's volume there, it's going to stay on exchanges and people will trade it. But this is not an investment that I'm interested in touching or coming anywhere close to. I think it's a pretty big another not so great look for the crypto industry. It kind of hurts RWAs as a whole to see project like this kind of cheat like that. So yeah, I'm staying very, 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 very far away from this one. But hey, you guys do whatever you want.
Shout out to Jimbo Khan. I've been battling with this guy for like a month trying to get his name unblocked. It's a whole thing trying to unblock names from YouTube, but we finally got it in there. The con man is back in the house. All right, now speaking of con man, another segue I did not plan. OpenAI. That's right, Sam Altman. OpenAI is building an X-like social network to rival Elon Musk's X. And so it says Sam Altman and Musk could be on a collision course as we're looking at the AI company's social media ambitions here. As according to anonymous sources, this is from The Verge. They're saying they're making an X-like social network that's going to combine ChatGPT's image generation tools and a social feed that should allow users to share their AI-generated pictures with a broader audience. And here's kind of looking at I think this is monthly active users. Weekly active users. When it first came out, 50 million, and now they have almost 10x the weekly active users there. And obviously they have a complicated history. Musk, donated to the nonprofit. That was OpenAI. OpenAI then pivoted to a for-profit model. Elon Musk no longer has any equity. Sam Altman is like rolling now with an iron fist. Then Musk, offered a buyout. Sam Altman, cheekily said no, and then counteroffered to buy X for 1/10 the amount. It's a whole tit for tat. It's a whole back and forth here. But what do you feel about WorldCoin CEO and OpenAI CEO launching an X competitor? Would you ever use it?
I mean, I'll never say never. It depends. If they get enough people on it, probably. But my first thought when I saw this is ironically, maybe this isn't true, but it feels like it's easier to build a successful AI company these days than it is to build a successful social network these days. Like I think people vastly underestimate how hard it is to get the network effects of a social media network going, and which is, I'm sure, why Elon had the foresight to buy something like X or Twitter at the time versus try to create his own. I mean, we've even seen that. We're live right now on Rumble. We love Rumble. Rumble is very supportive of our industry, very supportive of freedom and free speech. But they've been out this for a long time, and they're nowhere close to the numbers that YouTube.
What do we have, like
or
5
X.
people watching? Do we know?
I can't tell. They don't. Their APIs aren't set up to where it works with our StreamYard thing, and that right there shows there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be done. This is just not an easy task, and you could argue Rumble has been very successful in their endeavor, and they're still not even really in the conversation with X, with Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, the major ones, even Telegram, maybe, but even Trump with Truth Social. Like there's been a ton of people that have tried to launch alternative social media things, and it's very hard to get them going. So
how is TikTok able to do it in 2020?
That's great. Well, they had some technical innovation. They were the first ones to popularize, the vertical scrolling. They had a breakthrough algorithm. You could get their discovery was better than almost anything else. And really, it wasn't. TikTok didn't start in 2020. TikTok purchased.
Well, yeah, it was
Musically, which was
2020. I guess is when it hit velocity.
Right. And so, but Musically was really what started getting it going. And they were for the first time ever, a sound could go viral. That's what made it unique. Sounds never went viral on any social media thing ever before. And so because sounds could go viral, it attracted an entirely different new audience. It attracted the music industry. And, their music industry pumped a lot of money into growing and getting exposure on that. And you also had basically China. They put their full force of their whole economy behind it because they needed something to compete with the US on a social front, because the US had everything else. So they needed something to compete, and they just pushed and pushed and pushed until it got there. So and I don't think OpenAI has that same kind of reach. And again, they'd have to come up with something completely new, and I don't see it happening unless they have some way to, like they could do it on a 10-year basis. Maybe they can get there in 10 years. Maybe you could have some breakthrough innovation that works in a metaverse type environment that there isn't a ton of competition for yet. But Meta obviously has been working on that for quite some time. So good luck. To be honest, in some ways, I think this will be, I understand why they're doing it. They need it. They need to be able to train their AI, and they need a place to mine, you know, like Amazon's paying, by the way, tons of people, like all of YouTube, to be able to actually use their data and their looks and their mannerisms and their faces and all that sort of stuff to train their AIs. XAI has X, but that's the number one thing these AI companies need that make them unique is inputs, and it's going to take them a while to get there. So it just could end up being a massive distraction. It kind of makes me think of like when Microsoft tried to do streaming with Mixer, and then that blew up in their face. It's not easy to do. So hopefully they do it. Hopefully it's a massive distraction and a huge fail. That's what I'll say.
Should I add some DZ lore? I think Disco Fam likes the DZ lore. At one point, Disco Fam, I had the world's largest Magic the Gathering TikTok account. I was the world's #1 TikTok influencer when it came to Magic the Gathering. And that was a large part of how I ended up working here. I was like, hey, I actually have some bona fides. We're almost going to work on a little trading card game together. Now, I did bring up Metcalfe's law. That's kind of why social networks are a little bit harder to, open and create a success versus AI. The value of a telecommunications network increases with the square number of connected users. And so if one app has 9 users and one app has 10 users, one isn't, say 11% better. You would measure it by 81 square root of 9 versus 100 square root of 10. Then it starts looking, it's actually 20% more powerful. So it jumps dramatically there with users. Now, crazy story here. And I want to know, Disco Fam, was this you? Let me know if this was you. I think this was one of you that we're going to be talking about here. I want to say it was a man was arrested for stealing power to mine cryptocurrency. They arrested this man for stealing $200,000 worth of electricity to his apartment, and he was using it to mine cryptocurrency. They searched his home after noticing he paid for the power typically used for a regular household, but his power consumption was much, much, much higher. During the search, they found that he had been someone had tampered with his electricity meter. Taiwan's China Times reported he ran his computers nonstop for over 6 months, and he ran multiple air conditioners nonstop to cool the computers. He ended up underrepresenting his earnings in the confession. So is this you? Was this you? Let me know. Hit that like button if that was you.
Looks
never
like it was
steal power to.
Looks like it was Jesse Destructo. He says, I steal power to run miners all the time. I don't know if you want to admit that on the internet, but
yeah, don't do that. Remember, it was like a guy got caught pilfering a school board. He ended up doing, and it was underneath the floor of the school. He was like a janitor. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, I guarantee there's tons of like, especially early days of like computer labs at schools and stuff being used to mine. They had no idea. I mean, that was when I very first got into crypto. That was my first thought. I was working at a company that had, it was a TV company that had tons of huge, massive computers that had doing media rendering and video rendering. I'm like, man, if we could convert this place to be an overnight, basically Bitcoin, or maybe it wasn't Bitcoin, it was altcoins, but basically an overnight rendering farm, like we could make some serious money. And they were like, get out of here, you're crazy.
But this guy, he did it in the crawl space of the school. There's a picture of the crawl space. I guess a janitor or he noticed a bunch of things were amiss here. He started looking. These are the dusty old Bitcoin miners that they saw.
Ant miners.
They discovered computers in the crawl space and learned they were being used for a crypto mining operation that plugged into the school's electrical system. He only used $17,000 worth of electricity here, but they said noticed during a routine inspection, they noticed electrical wires, temporary ductwork, and numerous computers that seemed out of place. Imagine being that guy. You're just like, you hear it humming, you feel the heat, all these wires. What the heck is going on here? So yeah, don't steal electricity out there, folks. All right, well, that's all we got for today's show. Josh is going to be going live later on, and he has an upload coming out later tonight. You're not going to want to miss. TJ, could you tease it any whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, he's breaking down Ray Dalio and some of his predictions about the world economy, about the changing world order, and some of his most recent comments. We are going to be live, like DZ mentioned, for the Powell speech. Powell speaks at, I believe it's 1:30. We'll probably be going live around 1, potentially a little bit earlier. So turn notifications on to make sure you get it. We'll have some updates in there and looking at how that might impact trades and all that sort of stuff. We're probably, yeah, we're sitting around 85K right now. Could be very volatile going into this afternoon. So yeah, make sure to hit the like button on the way out. We love you guys, Disco fam.
Hit the like button down below. We got the link, and I'm actually winning the contest on LBank. TJ, I realized why it didn't work. I was looking at my quote tweet. If you click the actual link here, it takes you to this page, and it will show you the winner so far of the competition. I am 162. I'm 162. So I'm actually winning this competition. I'm number 1. So can you dethrone DZ? Go ahead and win $3,000. We're giving out 6K total, 3K to first place, 2K to second place, $1,000 to third place. You trade, was it 100? You get $30 bonus just right there.
I think it's scroll down. It's right. I think it's the whole graph is right below or right above that or somewhere in there.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
Register, complete your first $100 trade, get 30 USDT, limited to the first 500. So you got to hurry up, get in there. And, they also have all types of bonuses, claim up to 10,000 USDT there. So go check that out. We got a link down below. If you want to help support Discover Crypto, you want to get some trades in. We've been doing pretty good with the trades lately here, but don't try to short those good coins and don't try to long the bad ones. That's all I got to say.
All right. We'll see you guys on.